We've hit it, guys. Empire Strikes Back time. We are still continuing our road to episode 9, and as this week we are joining into Ren Geekness is here to join me as I revisit and review Empire Strikes Back, one of the best films ever created. I love Star Wars. If you guys haven't checked out any of my revisiting reviews yet, hit that link up above, check that card. There'll be tons of playlists right up there with every single movie that I have led up to Rise of Skywalker. Again, I'm super excited for that one, but it's fun to be revisiting this, doing a little bit of a marathon. I wish I could watch them back to back to back. I wish I truly had the time to. I don't have the time to do that, but I'm here to give you guys my thoughts on Empire Strikes Back. So if you guys are new here, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Comment down below, let me know what your guys' thoughts are on Empire Strikes Back, and please don't miss out on any of those earlier reviews, because they've been a lot of fun having guests join me. And of course, Ren, I joined him for Attack of the Clones a couple years back, and he'll be joining me for this one. So without further ado, guys, let's get started. After the rebels are brutally overpowered by the Empire on the ice planet Hoth, Luke Skywalker begins Jedi training with Yoda while his friends are pursued by Darth Vader. There's some cool correlations in this movie that I actually really appreciate, and actually I remember at the time when you read about it, many people did not like The Empire Strikes Back when it first came out. Many people thought it deceived many things that the first one kind of went against, which is kind of cool pre-notion because of what happened with Last Jedi. That's a different discussion we will discuss when episode 8 finally comes up into these revisiting. The thing with The Empire Strikes Back is it is very different than what a sequel would be perceived as and what they would usually do with the same format. It ends on a darker tone, not a very hopeful tone or a force kind of sensitive tone, but one of the things that I've always appreciated about The Empire Strikes Back is that sense, and the way that they tell the story in here is very different per se. The big opening Hoth battle is where I want to start at though, and it's dynamic, it's incredible, and it's still intense on the edge of your seat. I love the planet Hoth, and I absolutely love everything leading up to that battle, the Tauntauns and them riding around on it, the Wampa attacking Luke and him cutting the arm off. There's so many different dynamics inside that Battle of Hoth that I enjoy so much, and they are so pleasantly exciting that as you're watching them, you again feel on the edge of your seat. And then when the Empire's finally coming in, they're attacking the AT-ATs, going back and forth, which reminds me, yeah, I bought this a while ago. Gotta put that in the background now. We are not having that not be in my background because I love the AT-ATs. And I love this, and in general, I love The Empire Strikes Back. And the Battle of Hoth is just great, and one of my favorite things that kind of lead into that whole segment is when Darth Vader and his troops are approaching the base. They're going through it, and it just feels intense. When are they going to catch up to Han and Leia? Are they not? Are they here? And speaking of Han and Leia, there is this nice little romance finally settling in throughout the movie that's just building up throughout it, and it's really greatly paid off by the end when that famous line is when she says, "Han, I love you," and he says, "I know." So perfect, and I absolutely love the way that they changed the dynamic in there. And though just the build-up of this relationship, it feels so real, and in a sense their emotion and their chemistry with one another is one of the strongest parts of this film. But, of course, that's one side of the story. Let's talk about the other side of the story that I feel like is the major part that many people may have had an issue with back in the day, and maybe even still people do have an issue with. This is a slower type sequel. That is 100% sure, because it's pretty much 3 different dynamic storylines that we're going through. We have Luke and Yoda, C-3PO, Chewbacca, and of course Lando Calrissian eventually coming in there with Leia. And of course we have Darth Vader and himself pursuing them in all these different dynamics. So starting with Luke and Yoda, when he lands on this planet and they meet Yoda for the first time, Yoda's really kooky. And it's cool to see how he's in there, and then he gets pretty serious when Ben Kenobi starts talking to him and they start having this conversation and the Jedi training ensues. The whole training segment is very nice, and in fact it's one of the most entertaining things for me in this movie because a lot of it is character progression for Luke himself and where they are taking this character and how they are formulating him inside the story. It's one of my favorite things that goes throughout the whole thing because I do love the character Yoda so much, and the way that he is training Luke is one of my favorite aspects of this whole entire film. Plus, I mean, you're just mixing in R2-D2 kind of being the supporting cheerleader, the sassy one of course, that's just working overall in all those ways. But going straight from from there, we're going to jump into the Darth Vader storyline, which again, we start to get a little bit more of Darth Vader, and I just love the character, how menacing he is, how he starts just killing his people off. The way that you feel, like, the way that they got emotion out of him, the way that they got the anger, the frustration, and the anxiety-inducing stuff that Vader is going through in this movie without him showing any sort of emotion coming out, and it's just through the presence of his voice and the mannerisms of how he portrays his character is brilliantly directed and written in here. And it's one of the strongest parts about this is how you are feeling all those emotions as Darth Vader is trying to pursue and go about this whole ordeal with him, as he comes against the idea of maybe turning Skywalker into his apprentice, which now jumps into Han, Leia, Chewbacca, and C-3PO as they are just trying to escape from the Empire. Now, of course, there's a lot of fun stuff kind of going through the asteroid fields. It's really cool kind of going through there. There's a lot of fun dynamic chases sequences in there, which, again, the visual effects still hold up. All these action sequences are so interplaced perfectly, but it's when he gets to Cloud City where this film really ramps into the third act at such a fast pace. We get to meet Lando Calrissian for the first time. I love Lando Calrissian, and can I just give a major shout out to Donald Glover himself. He did such a good job in Solo portraying Lando Calrissian, and it's just really, like, the thing with watching Solo and watching this is you can totally see that, like, yeah, that is a younger version of Lando Calrissian, and this is the older version of him. And, of course, Billy D. Williams is fantastic as Lando, too. But just the dynamics, again, between Han and him, and kind of just knowing the background history from Solo adds a little bit more depth for me in that relationship between one another. Whatever you think about Solo, I hope we can at least agree on that part for sure. There's so many different dynamics in there, even knowing where it's leading up to Lando's betrayal on them. It's intense, and you're just waiting for it to happen as it's building and winding up to that point, and when it finally hits, it's like, damn it, it hits. It's intense in that same moment too, and of course Vader, again, that same frustration, that same level, we see how he's going through as he's changing all of his deals that he's made with Lando because he just doesn't care. He might make these deals, he might say stuff that he says, but it doesn't matter anymore because it doesn't matter to him. It's his life. He can do whatever the hell he wants with it. And it's just fascinating in its own right. But now we jump from just there. This is when all the storylines are finally intersecting with one another. We have Vader, we have all of our main companions growing, and then Skywalker is coming back to save them because he had his vision. A vision like that does keep you on the edge of your seat, and when he appeals, you know that that fight is coming about. One of my favorite lightsaber fights in all of Star Wars, the franchise. Just when it builds up to there, it's intense for sure. Like, it is intense as they're going about it, and the way that you kind of already seen that Luke has obviously learned from Yoda just a bit, but he's not to that level yet, but it's all building up to that final reveal that I cannot wait till I have kids so I can show them it without them knowing anything about it, and then when they see that he goes, I am your father. Oh my god. It's just one of the best twists of all time. It just builds perfectly to that moment, and just Luke's reaction is one of the most heartbreaking and devastating emotional stakes that I've ever seen inside a movie. It's heartbreaking for sure, and just again, it goes all to the dynamics and how this film builds up to that point. All these storylines don't feel like they're just randomly misplaced or just for different character purposes. All of them literally lead here perfectly and intersecting right here to the best part that it possibly could. And I really do like how Empire structures it that way. It's intense, and of course as it goes into this resolution, it starts building up to what Return of the Jedi will be. Again, this is just great. The score is fantastic. I really can't implore that. I think the score elevates every single sequence inside all these Star Wars movies. And overall, when it comes to The Empire Strikes Back, I just have a giddy, joyous smile to my face. It's again one of those movies, as you're watching, you're like, I don't really know how to feel about this. You always feel like that. You're still having a smile on your face, you're enjoying it, but you're like, I don't know how to feel about it. Then the second it ends, every single time, I have butterflies in my stomach, a sinking feeling in, and a feeling that, damn, I just need to watch Return of the Jedi right after this. But those might be my thoughts, and before I give you guys my score, let's jump over to Ryan Geekness. He's going to give you guys his thoughts on The Empire Strikes Back.
Hello everyone, and thank you Zach for having me on your Star Wars reviews. It's been a long time since we talked Star Wars with one another, and while I asked you to review probably the worst one of the saga, you invited me to review the second best one of the saga. No, I'm kidding. The most popular opinion is that The Empire Strikes Back is the best one, and it's a magnificent movie. Ever since it came out, it has been lauded as the fan favorite Star Wars movie. It has been the staple of what every sequel to anything should be, as nowadays we call a great sequel one that is better than the original, The Empire Strikes Back of that particular franchise. This film is amazing. From the get-go, there's a darker tone to just everything. The difficulties that Luke goes through, he nearly dies in the beginning. He starts growing more powerful in the Force, and we start seeing a separation from our group, and now the Empire is on their tails, ensuing the name of the film. This is very much, for me at least, a Darth Vader movie more than anyone else. It's not like the other characters don't have anything to do. It's not like they don't have a part to play in the story. It's not like they don't have arcs within this story as well, but this is a Darth Vader film. While he was very frightening in A New Hope, while he was clearly very powerful and he was set up to be the main antagonist, this film is his. He sets everything in motion. This is as much a story about him as anything. From the secrets we find out, the greatest reveal of all time to me. One of the things that I most love about this film is Luke's journey to Dagobah and his training and everything that entails, how he grows in the Force. It was the first film that gave us a broader explanation and a broader understanding of what the Force is and what the Force can do and how one can interpret or even understand the Force. And that was taught to Luke by the greatest master of all time, the greatest teacher, the greatest sensei, however you want to put it, Master Yoda. I just love this little guy.
I'm looking for a great warrior.
Oh, great warrior. Force not make one great.
He's wise, he's clearly powerful, but he's also really funny. And his humor really works.
Judge me by my size, do you?
And I love how Yoda plays around with Luke, how he's expecting this awesome looking guy, this big, huge, powerful dude to come to his aid and teach him. And it's this small guy who's the most legendary Jedi Master ever.
For my ally is the Force. And a powerful ally it is. Life creates it. Makes it grow. Its energy surrounds us and binds us. Luminous beings are we.
And the cave that Luke goes into to understand what he's truly facing, he is facing a part of himself. He's facing the man that gave him life, but we'll still get to that. While Luke is training in Dagobah, Han, Leia, Chewie, 3PO, and R2-D2 go to Bespin, to Cloud City, to meet Han's old friend, the ladies' man himself, Lando Calrissian. To this day, I think Bespin is one of the most beautiful looking planets in all of Star Wars. I just love the colors, I love the architecture in it, I love the landscape, just cities over the clouds. But there's a trap set up, and that trap is Darth Vader himself waiting for them to have some dinner. I always love that meme where Darth Vader just set up the table for dinner, and the first thing Han does is shoot him right where he stands. But Vader, like, just stops the blaster bolt from Han's gun, and then he gets frozen into carbonite, and we get to hear one of the greatest comebacks in film history.
I love you.
I know.
And that was all from the mind of one Harrison Ford. Let's never forget that. And from that capture, we get one of the greatest fights in Star Wars history. To many fans, the best one. The drama is heightened. The action is amazing. Vader is just playing around with Luke. He's almost not doing much for most of the fight. Just when Luke starts getting angry, he starts stepping into his true potential, which is, in one hand, what Vader wants, but on the other hand, Vader starts to see that he has to actually defend himself. But then in comes the greatest reveal, and Luke just can't handle it.
No, I am your father.
Gotta be honest, I will never know, as much as a Star Wars fan as I am, I will never know what it's like to watch this scene without knowing what's to come. Because when I watched The Empire Strikes Back, hell, when I watched New Hope for the first time, I knew who Vader was, I knew he was the father of Luke, but there's a small piece of me that gets displeasure every time I hear the reveal, because it is so powerful, because it changes everything that we saw in this film until this point. It changes the perception of a new Hope and the interactions between Luke and Vader and Obi-Wan and Vader and Obi-Wan and Luke. I just love this type of reveal, the reveal that changes our perception and our understanding of what we were seeing up until this point. And Luke loses a hand along with getting this reveal that destroys him inside. He thankfully gets rescued by Leia and 3PO, and Vader wins. The Empire wins. Boba Fett gets Han to take him to Jabba the Hutt, and this is a film that just ends in desolation for our heroes. And at the time, without knowing there was a sequel to come, or maybe even being made, I cannot even imagine how stressful that must have been, seeing the villains win in such a big, big film. The Empire Strikes Back is one of the best movies ever made. From the setting to the score by John Williams, which is masterful. The Empire Strikes Back is perhaps his best score in Star Wars. The acting gets taken up a notch, the characters get taken up a notch, the writing is as sharp as it ever was, maybe even sharper than it was in the original Star Wars. Our villain gets taken to a whole new level. There was a reason to fear him before, but now that we know him, we know who he truly is, there maybe are more reasons to fear him, which is something truly special, because when it comes to, like, quote-unquote monsters or villains, they're scarier when they're mysterious, when you know little about them. But Vader is that special kind of villain. He's the villain that the more you know about him, the scarier he gets. As I previously mentioned, he was already cool, he was already menacing, he was already a badass in the original Star Wars. To me, The Empire Strikes Back is the movie that makes him the greatest villain of all time. I'm giving The Empire Strikes Back an A+. So what do you guys think about The Empire Strikes Back, and what do you think, Zach? Once more, thank you so much for having me on your channel, being a part of this fantastic series of Star Wars reviews. I always love talking about Star Wars, but I love even more talking about Star Wars with my friends. Thank you, Zach. I hope to talk to you again soon, whether it's Star Wars or not, the subject that we talk about. And if you want to see more of me, just check me out at Red and Geekness everywhere. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Thank you so much, everyone, for giving me your time. So until the next one, may the Force be with you.
Thank you, Ren, for joining me, guys. That's going to be his score. And before I give you guys my final thoughts, make sure, again, to go hit his like and subscribe button. Comment down below on one of his latest videos and let him know that I sent you there, guys. And, of course, make sure to comment down below on this video as well. And hit that like and subscribe button here as well. A big thank you to you for clicking on this video. A big thank you to my Patreon supporters for supporting me. And the big part is, if you guys want to check out movies early, make sure to go over to Sandwich on Films on how to see films early. Empire Strikes Back is the quintessential, one of the best sequels ever created for any franchise or trilogy. I love this movie. I love watching and having a big smile on my face, and in general, the action is great. It's intense. The intersecting storylines, the way that they get there, build every character in such a fabulous way. Darth Vader has some of the best moments inside this film. Leia and Han have such a great chemistry, and all the great one-liners that C-3PO, R2-D2, and of course Chewbacca all throw without are great. Lando is a great additional character, and Luke's training with Yoda is superb. So that all that said, I'm going to give The Empire Strikes Back something that I'm sure you guys aren't surprised by, an A+. Let me know what your guys' thoughts are on this film. I'm so excited to talk with you guys again. We're leading up to episode 9. We have Return of the Jedi and A Force Awakens and even The Last Jedi coming up very soon. A couple other Star Wars videos will be mixed in. Also, The Rise of Skywalker in a little bit beforehand. But that's coming up soon, guys. Make sure to follow me up on Twitter if you guys want to check up on any of those and be up to date. But thank you guys again so much for clicking on this video. And of course, may the Force be with us all.